Today's story is, You're Sleeping Beside Me Tonight. Then the Mafia boss kissed her before everyone. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another cinematic story about dignity, courage, and the unexpected places where human connection can begin. If stories about compassion, overcoming judgment, and powerful people discovering what truly matters speak to you, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss what comes next. Now, let's begin today's story. Don't touch that woman again. The words crossed the ballroom so quietly that Rachel Brooks almost wondered whether she had imagined them. Then the orchestra stopped. Every face turned toward the marble staircase. Gabriel DeLuca stood beneath the golden chandelier in a midnight black tuxedo, one hand resting inside his pocket, his expression frighteningly calm. Rachel's heart hammered. 32 years old, beautiful in a soft, warm way, with deep brown skin, gentle dark eyes, and a full plus-size figure, she had spent most of the evening trying to disappear behind a silver serving tray. She had failed. A moment earlier, one of Gabriel's wealthy associates, Preston Hale, had grabbed her wrist after she refused to bring him another drink. "You work here," Preston had sneered. "That means when I ask for something, you smile and do it." Rachel had looked directly at him. "It means I serve guests, sir. It doesn't mean you own my hand." Someone nearby had laughed. Not with her. At her. Rachel knew that sound. She had heard versions of it throughout her life. The little chuckle people used when someone they considered beneath them dared to have boundaries. Preston tightened his grip. Then Gabriel spoke. Now the room was silent enough to hear ice settling inside abandoned champagne glasses. Preston released her. "Gabriel, relax. We were having fun." Gabriel descended the staircase. Slowly, the crowd separated before him without being asked. Everyone in Chicago knew the DeLuca name. Men lowered their voices when discussing Gabriel's business. Politicians returned his calls. Restaurant owners suddenly found private tables when he entered without reservations. But Rachel had known him differently. For 6 months, she had worked inside his estate as a housekeeper. She knew he drank coffee without sugar. She knew he hated lilies because their scent reminded him of funerals. She knew he sometimes stood alone outside his daughter's old bedroom at 2 in the morning, although nobody had entered that room since the child's mother had died. And Gabriel knew almost nothing about Rachel. At least, that was what she believed. He stopped beside Preston. "Apologize." Preston laughed nervously. To the maid. Gabriel's eyes hardened. To Rachel. Her name. Something tightened inside her chest. Preston looked around, hoping someone would join his amusement. Nobody did. "Come on. You're embarrassing me." "No," Gabriel said. "You accomplished that yourself." Rachel lowered her tray. "Mr. DeLuca, please. I don't want trouble." Gabriel turned toward her. For one strange second, the dangerous coldness disappeared from his face. He noticed the faint red marks around her wrist. His jaw tightened. Then his gaze moved beyond Rachel. Across the ballroom, 3 men had just entered through the eastern doors. Gabriel recognized them immediately. Rachel saw his expression change. This was no longer only about Preston. Something was wrong. Gabriel stepped closer to her. "Rachel," he said quietly, "whatever happens next, stay near me." Her breath caught. "Why?" His eyes remained fixed on the approaching men. "Because tonight, being mistaken for someone important to me may be the safest place in this room." And before Rachel could understand what those words meant, the first stranger began walking directly toward them. The stranger stopped 10 feet away. Rachel could feel the ballroom watching. He was perhaps 50, silver-haired, elegantly dressed, with the polished smile of a man accustomed to entering rooms where everyone already knew his name. Gabriel DeLuca. Gabriel moved half a step in front of Rachel. Marcus Varela. No handshake followed. Rachel noticed that immediately. So did everyone else. Behind Marcus stood 2 men in dark suits, their expressions neutral. Nothing openly threatening happened, yet the atmosphere tightened until even the chandelier light seemed colder. Marcus glanced toward Rachel. "And who is this?" Before she could answer, Gabriel said, "She's with me." Rachel's eyes widened. Marcus smiled. "Really?" His gaze traveled over her black uniform, then returned to Gabriel. The meaning was obvious. Rachel felt heat rise beneath her skin. Gabriel noticed. "Is something amusing?" "Unexpected," Marcus replied. "That's all." Preston, apparently too foolish to recognize danger when it stood beside him, laughed from behind them. "She's the housekeeper." Gabriel turned his head slowly. Rachel closed her eyes for half a second. Preston had just made the room worse. Marcus's smile deepened. The housekeeper? Rachel hated the way the word changed in his mouth. Not an occupation. A verdict. She straightened her shoulders. My name is Rachel Brooks. Marcus looked at her more carefully. For the first time, Rachel refused the instinct to disappear. 6 months earlier, she had arrived at the DeLuca estate carrying one suitcase, a recommendation letter, and $43 in her checking account. Her father had died, leaving debts nobody knew existed. Her younger brother, Elijah, had postponed community college to help their mother keep the family apartment. Rachel refused to let him sacrifice his future. So she worked. Morning housekeeping at Gabriel's estate. Weekend catering. Alterations from her kitchen table whenever neighbors needed dresses repaired. Her body was soft and full, her face naturally gentle, and strangers often mistook gentleness for weakness. They usually learned otherwise. Marcus extended his hand. A pleasure, Rachel. She looked at it. Then at Gabriel. His expression gave nothing away. Rachel shook Marcus's hand once. Likewise. Marcus released her. Gabriel has always been private about the people who matter to him. Rachel heard the trap hidden beneath the politeness. Apparently, Gabriel did too. She matters. 2 words. Nothing more. But Rachel's pulse stumbled. Marcus studied them together. Then he nodded toward the ballroom. Interesting timing. Half the city's important families are here tonight. And suddenly Gabriel DeLuca has someone beside him. Rachel turned toward Gabriel. He had not told her why these men frightened him. He had not explained why pretending she mattered to him could make her safer. And she was beginning to dislike being used inside a game whose rules she did not understand. Marcus finally stepped away. We'll talk later. Gabriel waited until he disappeared into the crowd. Then Rachel whispered, What was that? A problem. That is not an answer. Gabriel looked at her. No. She set the silver tray onto a nearby table. You told them I matter to you. You do. Rachel froze. Gabriel seemed to realize what he had said only after the words existed between them. For once, the feared mafia boss looked almost uncertain. Then his security chief approached and whispered something into his ear. Gabriel's expression hardened. The East Wing has been compromised. Rachel frowned. What does that mean? It means you're not going home alone tonight. Her stomach tightened. Excuse me. Gabriel leaned closer, keeping his voice low enough that only she could hear. You're staying somewhere I can protect you. Rachel folded her arms. And where exactly is that? His eyes held hers. In my private suite. The noise of the ballroom seemed to disappear. Rachel stared at him. Gabriel did not smile. And suddenly she understood that whatever had begun tonight was far more dangerous than an insult at a party. Your private suite? Rachel stared at Gabriel as though he had suggested something even more dangerous than the men watching them from across the ballroom. No, Gabriel's brow tightened. No. You heard me. People did not tell Gabriel DeLuca no. Rachel knew that from the sudden expression on his security chief's face. But fear did not erase common sense. You haven't explained who Marcus Varello is, why your East Wing has supposedly been compromised, or why telling strangers that I matter to you somehow makes me safer. Her voice remained low. And now you expect me to follow you upstairs? Gabriel studied her. Most people became agreeable when frightened. Rachel became precise. Marcus believes someone close to me has access to information he wants, Gabriel finally said. And now he thinks that person is me. Yes. Rachel exhaled slowly. Because of you. Yes. At least he did not insult her with a lie. Beyond them, the orchestra resumed, but the music sounded strangely distant. Guests returned to their conversations while continuing to watch from behind champagne glasses. Rachel folded her arms. Then correct him. I can't. Why? Because the moment Marcus believes you mean nothing to me, you become useful in another way. Rachel's stomach tightened. Gabriel's eyes softened slightly. A witness. Leverage. Someone he can pressure because he assumes I won't respond. For the first time, Rachel understood the shape of the danger. Not completely. Enough. She glanced toward the ballroom doors. I can call my brother. No, her eyes snapped back. Elijah stays out of this. The fact that Gabriel knew her brother's name startled her. How do you know about Elijah? I know who works in my home. That's not the same thing. Gabriel said nothing. Rachel suddenly remembered small things. The afternoon her mother's furnace failed, and the estate manager unexpectedly approved her paycheck 2 days early. The morning Gabriel changed the household schedule after discovering Rachel was working 16-hour Saturdays. The winter evening, a driver had appeared when snow canceled her bus. She had assumed those were administrative decisions. Now she wasn't certain. "You've been watching me? Protecting my household." Rachel gave him a look. "That sounded better in your head, didn't it?" For the briefest moment, Gabriel almost smiled. Then his security chief returned. "Sir, we found an unauthorized access card near the upstairs corridor." Gabriel's expression hardened. "Lock the residential floor. Nobody enters without clearance." Rachel looked toward the grand staircase. His private world waited above it. She had cleaned almost every room in the mansion, but never Gabriel's suite. Staff were forbidden from entering without direct permission. Now he wanted her inside. "Separate rooms," she said. Gabriel looked at her. "If I stay upstairs, I get my own room. There's a guest room inside the suite. And the door locks from your side." Rachel considered him for several seconds. "Fine." Gabriel extended his hand. She ignored it and started toward the staircase herself. That almost smile returned. They had reached the first step when Marcus's voice carried across the ballroom. "Leaving already?" Every head turned. Rachel stopped. Marcus stood beside Preston, watching them with open curiosity. Gabriel's jaw tightened. Rachel understood immediately. If they retreated now looking frightened, Marcus would know something was wrong. Gabriel leaned toward her. "I need you to trust me for 10 seconds. That sentence has never made a woman feel safer." "Probably not." Despite herself, Rachel nearly laughed. Then Gabriel stepped closer. His hand settled gently at her waist. Not pulling, not claiming, simply waiting. Rachel looked into his eyes. He was asking permission without saying it. After a beat, she gave the smallest nod. Gabriel turned toward the watching room. His voice was calm. "You wanted to know whether Rachel matters to me." Marcus's smile disappeared. Gabriel looked back at Rachel. And suddenly, every person beneath those golden chandeliers was waiting to see what he would do next. Gabriel did not move immediately. That hesitation mattered. Rachel could feel his hand resting lightly at her waist, warm through the fabric of her uniform, but there was no pressure in it. No command. Around them, the ballroom waited. Marcus Varela watched from beside the champagne table with the patient expression of a man searching for weakness. Preston stood near him, still wearing the smug little smile Rachel had wanted to erase all evening. Gabriel lowered his voice. "Still trust me?" Rachel looked into his dark eyes. For about 8 more seconds. Something softened in his face. Then he turned toward Marcus. "She matters." Marcus lifted his glass. "You've established that." "No," Gabriel said. "Apparently I haven't." He looked back at Rachel. His gaze dropped briefly to her mouth, then returned to her eyes. Rachel understood. And this time, the decision belonged to her. She gave one small nod. Gabriel leaned down and kissed her. It was brief, gentle, nothing like the possessive performance the room expected from a man with his reputation. Yet the reaction was immediate. A champagne glass stopped halfway to someone's lips. Preston's smile vanished. Marcus became perfectly still. Rachel heard someone inhale sharply behind her. When Gabriel stepped back, he did not release her waist until she moved first. Her heart was beating so hard she was certain he could feel it. "That was more than 10 seconds, she whispered. "I owe you 2. You owe me an explanation." "Yes." Marcus approached them slowly. "Well," he said, "that certainly clarifies things." Rachel disliked the satisfaction beneath his voice. Gabriel did too. "Does it?" Marcus smiled. "You spent years making sure nobody knew where to hurt you." His eyes settled on Rachel. "Now the whole room knows." Gabriel's expression turned to stone. Rachel felt the danger before she understood it. The kiss had protected the lie. It had also painted a target on her. Marcus walked away. Rachel waited until he disappeared into the crowd before turning sharply toward Gabriel. "You knew he might react like that." "I knew it was possible." "And you kissed me anyway?" "You agreed." "I agreed because you told me it would help." "It did." Rachel stepped away from him. "Then why do I feel less safe?" Gabriel had no immediate answer. That frightened her more than anything else. His security chief appeared again. "Mr. DeLuca." One glance at the man's face changed Gabriel completely. "What?" "We found the breach." He handed Gabriel a small access card sealed inside a clear evidence pouch. "Registered to household staff." Rachel stared at it. Gabriel's eyes narrowed. "Whose?" The security chief hesitated. Rachel Brooks. Her blood went cold. That's impossible. Several nearby guests turned toward them. Preston heard. Of course he did. He laughed. Well, this evening just became interesting. Rachel faced Gabriel. I didn't give anyone my card. I know. You don't know? You believe me or you don't. Gabriel looked directly at her. I believe you. No hesitation. No interrogation. Rachel's anger faltered. Gabriel handed the card back to security. Pull every camera feed. Find out who cloned it. Yes, sir. Preston stepped closer. Or perhaps your housekeeper isn't quite as innocent as you think. Gabriel turned. The room seemed to contract. Careful. Preston stopped smiling. Rachel touched Gabriel's sleeve. Don't. He looked down at her hand. I can defend myself. I know. That answer surprised her. Gabriel faced the room. The party is over. Murmurs spread instantly. Security began directing guests toward the exits. Rachel watched Marcus disappear through the main doors without looking back. Within minutes, the ballroom that had glittered with music and laughter became an abandoned landscape of half-finished champagne and empty chairs. Rachel finally exhaled. I'm going home. Gabriel shook his head. No, her eyes narrowed. He stepped closer, but this time kept his hands at his sides. Someone cloned your access card. Marcus now believes you're important to me. And whoever entered that corridor wanted suspicion pointed directly at you. Rachel's face slowly changed. Gabriel's voice dropped. You're sleeping beside me tonight. She stared at him. He immediately clarified. In the adjoining room. Locked door. Your choice. A beat passed. Then Rachel whispered. You really need to work on how you phrase things. For the first time that night, Gabriel laughed. But upstairs, behind a door neither of them had opened yet, someone had left a photograph on his pillow. A photograph of Rachel. The photograph had been taken that morning. Rachel knew because she was wearing the blue coat she had buttoned against the cold while waiting for the bus outside her apartment. Someone had photographed her from across the street. On Gabriel DeLuca's pillow. Inside a room protected by cameras, guards, locked corridors, and men whose entire job was keeping strangers out. Rachel stopped breathing. Gabriel did not. His face became frighteningly calm. Don't touch it. I wasn't planning to. He moved in front of her, scanning the bedroom before signaling security. Within seconds, 2 men entered wearing gloves. Rachel remained in the doorway. Her own face stared back from the glossy photograph. Someone had drawn a small black circle around her. No threat. No message. Somehow that was worse. They know where I live, she whispered. Gabriel turned. Toward her. Yes. And they got inside your bedroom. Yes. Rachel wrapped her arms around herself. For the first time that evening, her courage began to crack. Not because she feared for herself. Elijah. Gabriel was already reaching for his phone. My people are checking on him and your mother. Rachel stepped closer. No. Call him. Rachel, call him now. Gabriel saw the panic in her eyes and obeyed. The phone rang once. Twice. Then a sleepy voice answered. Hello. Rachel nearly collapsed with relief. Elijah? Ratch? Why are you calling this late? She closed her eyes. I just needed to hear your voice. A pause. You okay? Rachel looked at Gabriel. No, she said honestly. But I will be. After convincing Elijah to lock the apartment and answer the security team Gabriel was sending, she ended the call. Her hands were trembling. Gabriel noticed. He removed his tuxedo jacket and placed it around her shoulders. Rachel almost protested, then didn't. It smelled faintly of cedar and smoke. Why me? She asked. Gabriel leaned against the dresser. I don't know yet. You always have an answer. Not tonight. That honesty surprised her. Security searched the suite while Rachel sat on the edge of a leather chair in the adjoining sitting room. Minutes passed. Then 20. The mansion had become unnaturally quiet. Gabriel eventually returned without his tie, sleeves rolled to his forearms. They found no one. Rachel gave a humorless laugh. That's reassuring. They did find something. Her expression changed. What? The photograph was printed downstairs. Rachel stared at him. Inside the house. Yes. So whoever did this had internal access. The words settled heavily between them. Rachel thought about the staff. People she ate lunch with. People who knew which bus she took. People who knew about Elijah. Gabriel watched understanding move across her face. Trust nobody tonight. Rachel looked at him. Does that include you? He did not smile. It should. The answer silenced her. Gabriel walked to the guest room and checked the window himself. Then he demonstrated the lock, placed his phone on the bedside table, and stepped back. This room is yours. And you? Outside. Rachel frowned. You said adjoining room. Plans changed. You're going to sit outside my door all night. Yes. That's ridiculous. Probably. Rachel studied him. This man could command dozens of armed guards. Yet instead of assigning one, he intended to remain outside her door himself. Gabriel. He stopped. Why? For several seconds, the feared mafia boss said nothing. Then his eyes moved toward the photograph sealed inside an evidence bag. Because whoever entered my bedroom wanted me to understand something. Rachel waited. Gabriel looked at her. They know you matter. Her heartbeat changed. And do I? The question escaped before she could stop it. Silence. Gabriel stepped closer, but not close enough to touch her. When Preston grabbed you tonight, he said quietly, I was angry before I had time to decide whether I should be. Rachel's breath caught. That's the problem. What is? His eyes held hers. I wasn't pretending. Neither moved. Then a sharp knock struck the outer door. Gabriel turned instantly. His security chief stood beyond it, pale and tense. Sir, we identified who printed the photograph. Gabriel's expression hardened. Who? The man hesitated. Someone who has worked for your family for 18 years. Thomas Reed. Gabriel said the name slowly. Rachel watched something unfamiliar pass through his face. Not anger. Pain. His security chief, Adrian Cole, remained near the doorway. Thomas's credentials accessed the downstairs office at 10:43 p.m. The printer log matches the photograph. Gabriel looked toward the dark window. Thomas Reed had served the DeLuca family since Gabriel was 16. He had driven Gabriel's mother to chemotherapy appointments. He had stood beside Gabriel at her funeral. When Gabriel inherited an empire full of men whose loyalty changed with money, Thomas had been one of the few people he never questioned. Bring him to the library, Gabriel said. Rachel stood. I'm coming. No, her expression hardened. The photograph was of me. Which is exactly why, Gabriel. One word. He stopped. Rachel stepped closer, his jacket still around her shoulders. You told me to trust. Nobody tonight. Fine. Then don't ask me to sit behind a locked door while other people decide what my life means. Gabriel stared at her, then nodded. Stay beside me. They found Thomas waiting beneath the library's amber lamps. He was 62, gray-haired, broad through the shoulders, dressed in the same immaculate black suit Rachel had seen him wear almost every day. He did not look frightened. That bothered her. Gabriel closed the door. Why? Thomas glanced at Rachel. I was trying to protect you. Gabriel's jaw tightened. By photographing her? No, Thomas reached slowly into his jacket. Adrian immediately stepped forward. Thomas stopped. Envelope. Inside pocket. Adrian removed it and handed it to Gabriel. Inside were photographs. Rachel leaving her apartment. Rachel entering the estate. Rachel beside Elijah outside a grocery store. And Marcus Varela speaking to Preston Hale 2 nights earlier. Rachel's stomach dropped. Thomas exhaled. Marcus has been watching her for days. Gabriel looked up. You knew? I discovered it yesterday. And told nobody? I didn't know who inside the house I could trust. Thomas explained that someone had copied staff access credentials weeks earlier. He had used his own card to enter the office and print the photograph because electronic messages could be intercepted. Rachel frowned. Then why put it on Gabriel's pillow? To prove the security breach was real. Gabriel's eyes turned cold. You terrified her to make a point. Thomas lowered his gaze. Yes. Rachel studied him. You could have handed us the evidence. I should have. No excuse. That mattered. Gabriel placed the photographs on the desk. Who cloned Rachel's card? Thomas looked toward Preston's photograph. I believe Hale arranged it. Rachel froze. Preston, the man who had grabbed her wrist. The man who kept reducing her to the housekeeper. Suddenly his behavior felt different. Not random cruelty. Camouflage. Thomas continued. Marcus needed someone inside the estate who could create confusion without attracting attention. Preston has debts. Serious ones. Gabriel's expression darkened. And Rachel? An easy scapegoat. The phrase struck the room. Like a slap. Rachel understood immediately. A black housekeeper with financial problems. If something disappeared, if confidential information leaked, if an access card appeared where it shouldn't. People like Preston expected everyone to believe the simplest prejudice. She wasn't targeted because she was weak, Gabriel said. Thomas shook his head. She was targeted because they assumed nobody powerful would question the accusation. Silence. Rachel slowly removed Gabriel's jacket from her shoulders. She folded it carefully and placed it over a chair. No, 3 men looked at her. Rachel's gentle face had changed. The fear remained. But something stronger stood beside it now. They chose me because they thought being overlooked meant being helpless. Gabriel watched her. What do you want to do? Not what should he do. What did she want? Rachel looked at the photographs. Then at Preston's smiling face. I want him to believe his plan worked. Gabriel became very still. Thomas stared at her. Rachel lifted her eyes. If Preston wants everyone to suspect the housekeeper, her voice steadied. Then tomorrow morning, let him think you do too. By 9 the next morning, Rachel Brooks had become a suspect. At least, that was what Preston Hale was supposed to believe. She stood inside Gabriel's study wearing her ordinary black work uniform, hands folded calmly in front of her while 2 security officers waited near the door. Gabriel sat behind his mahogany desk. His expression was cold enough to convince almost anyone. Almost. You understand why you're here? He asked. Rachel lowered her eyes. Yes, Mr. DeLuca. The formality felt strange after everything they had shared upstairs. Adrian placed the cloned access card on the desk. We have evidence connecting your credentials to the restricted corridor. Rachel said nothing. Beyond the half-open study door, footsteps approached. Right on time. Preston entered with Marcus Varela. His surprise at seeing Rachel lasted less than a second. Then satisfaction replaced it. Gabriel noticed. So did Rachel. Gentlemen, Gabriel said. You wanted an explanation for last night. Marcus looked toward Rachel. And apparently you found one. We're still investigating. Preston stepped closer. I told you she wasn't innocent. Rachel allowed her shoulders to sink. It cost her something to perform weakness for a man who had already mistaken her kindness for it. Preston smiled. People become desperate when they need money. Rachel looked at him. You know about my family? The question came softly. Preston hesitated. Too long. Gabriel's fingers became still against the desk. Marcus glanced sideways at him. Preston recovered quickly. Everyone knows staff gossip. Rachel nodded. Of course. She reached toward the access card. Adrian stopped her. Don't touch it. Another deliberate humiliation. Rachel withdrew her hand. Preston relaxed. He believed it. Gabriel leaned back. The strange thing is the timing. Marcus's expression sharpened. What timing? The card entered the east corridor at 10:31. Gabriel looked toward Rachel. But Ms. Brooks was serving drinks in the ballroom at 10:31. Preston's smile weakened. Someone could have borrowed it. Cloned. Rachel corrected. Silence. Preston looked at her. Rachel raised her eyes. No fear remained in them. Marcus understood first. His face hardened. Gabriel stood. The performance was over. Adrian closed the study door. Preston turned toward it. What is this? Rachel stepped away from the guards. You made one mistake. Preston laughed nervously. And what would that be? You thought nobody remembers where the maid is. She moved toward the desk. But people like me spend our lives being expected to remember everything. Her voice remained calm. Which guest wanted bourbon? Which woman was allergic to shellfish? Which table needed fresh glasses? Rachel looked directly at him. And which man disappeared from the ballroom 6 minutes before my access card was used? Preston's face changed. Gabriel watched him carefully. Rachel continued. You left through the service corridor at 10:25. That proves nothing. No, Adrian placed a tablet on the desk. A security image appeared. Preston near the staff entrance. Then another. Preston speaking with a temporary catering employee who had been detained that morning. Gabriel's voice dropped. He admitted you paid him. Marcus turned toward Preston. You idiot. Those 2 words revealed more than denial ever could. Gabriel's eyes shifted immediately to Marcus. Rachel heard it too. Preston stared at him. You said this was clean. The room froze. Marcus's face went white. Gabriel slowly walked around the desk. Thank you, Preston. Preston realized what he had done. Too late. Marcus stepped backward. Adrian blocked him. Rachel stood between worlds she had never asked to enter, watching powerful men destroy themselves because they had underestimated the woman carrying their drinks. Gabriel stopped beside her. Not in front of her. Beside her. What happens now? Rachel whispered. Gabriel looked at Marcus and Preston. That depends. On what? His eyes returned to hers. on whether we become the kind of people they expected us to be. Rachel understood. Revenge would be easy. Something better would be harder. She stepped forward. No violence. Marcus stared at her in disbelief. Gabriel did not. He simply nodded. No violence. And in that moment, Rachel realized the most dangerous man in Chicago had just allowed a housekeeper to draw the line he would not cross. The police arrived without sirens. Rachel noticed that first. 3 unmarked cars rolled through the DeLuca estate gates while morning sunlight spilled across the wet driveway. No shouting. No spectacle. Just consequences approaching quietly. Inside the study, Preston Hale had stopped pretending. Marcus Varela had stopped smiling. Gabriel stood beside Rachel while Adrian handed investigators copies of security footage, access records, financial transfers, and the temporary employee's statement. Everything had been documented. Rachel insisted on that. No threats hidden behind closed doors. No disappearing men. No punishment delivered because Gabriel's name frightened people. Truth would have to be enough. Preston looked at Rachel as an investigator approached him. You did this. Rachel's expression remained calm. No. She glanced toward the evidence spread across Gabriel's desk. You did. His face twisted. You think these people respect you now? Gabriel moved slightly. Rachel touched his arm. He stopped. She wanted this answer to belong to her. I don't need everyone to respect me, she said. I need to respect the woman I become after people treat me badly. Preston had no response. Marcus did. You really believe this ends cleanly? His eyes settled on Gabriel. You built your entire life on fear, DeLuca. Now you're pretending you've discovered principles because a pretty housekeeper looked at you differently. The insult was designed for Gabriel. Rachel felt it strike him. For years, Gabriel had survived by becoming exactly what dangerous men expected: controlled, ruthless, impossible to embarrass. Violence had always been the shortest language in his world. Today, Rachel was asking him to speak another. Gabriel looked at Marcus for a long moment. Then he stepped backward. You're right about one thing. Marcus smiled faintly. I built too much on fear. The smile disappeared. Gabriel nodded toward the investigators. So today, fear gets nothing. Marcus was escorted from the room. Preston followed. As he passed Rachel, his eyes dropped. Not in respect. In defeat. That was enough. The front door closed behind them. Silence returned to the estate. Rachel exhaled. Her knees suddenly felt weak. Gabriel noticed. You should sit. I've spent enough time being told where to stand and sit. He almost smiled. Fair. Rachel walked toward the window. For the first time since the ballroom confrontation, nobody was watching them. No guests. No enemies. No performance. She turned. The kiss. Gabriel became still. Rachel folded her arms. We never discussed it. I thought perhaps you'd forgotten. I was kissed by my employer in front of half of Chicago. A pause. Hard to misplace that memory. Gabriel looked unexpectedly uncomfortable. Rachel nearly enjoyed it. You gave permission, he said. I did. But you told Marcus I mattered before you knew whether you were pretending. Gabriel said nothing. Rachel stepped closer. Last night you said you weren't. I wasn't. Her heartbeat changed. What exactly does that mean? For once, Gabriel had no strategic answer. He looked at the woman who had entered his home 6 months earlier carrying cleaning supplies and quietly learned every corner of a world that barely noticed her. I noticed when you changed your schedule to help your brother. Rachel blinked. I noticed you leave food for the night guards when catering throws it away. He took one step closer. I noticed you laugh differently when you're tired. Her expression softened. Gabriel. And somewhere between noticing and last night, you stopped being someone who worked in my house. Silence. What did I become? His eyes held hers. Someone I was afraid to lose. Rachel's breath caught. But she did not move closer. Not yet. If anything happens between us, she whispered, I cannot be your employee. Gabriel nodded immediately. Agreed. And I won't become something you own because you can protect me. I know. Rachel studied him. Then she smiled. Good. Gabriel's phone vibrated on the desk. Neither moved toward it. Outside, the police cars disappeared beyond the gates. Inside, for the first time, there was no danger forcing Rachel and Gabriel together, which meant whatever happened next would have to be chosen. 3 months later, Rachel Brooks walked through the DeLuca estate's front doors without wearing a uniform. That mattered more than Gabriel expected. She wore a deep emerald dress she had altered herself, elegant against her warm brown skin, her natural curls framing the gentle face he had once watched disappear behind silver serving trays. Tonight, nobody mistook her for invisible. Gabriel waited near the staircase. No security crisis had brought her there. No enemy was watching. No lie required them to stand together. Rachel had come because she wanted to. "You're staring," she said. "I know. You could pretend to have manners." "I could." She smiled. Gabriel offered his hand. This time, Rachel took it. Much had changed. After leaving household employment, Rachel reopened the small alterations business she had abandoned when her father died. Gabriel offered investment money. She refused. So he became her first unnecessarily demanding customer instead. Rachel charged him full price. He paid without argument. Elijah returned to community college that fall. Their mother finally stopped. Pretending she wasn't proud whenever Gabriel appeared for Sunday dinner carrying dessert, nobody believed he had chosen himself. Even Thomas Reed remained with the DeLuca family, though trust had not returned automatically. Rachel insisted it shouldn't. Forgiveness, she had learned, could be offered in a moment. Trust had to walk home slowly. Preston and Marcus faced the consequences of the evidence against them through the legal system. Gabriel kept his promise. No retaliation. No violence. For a man who had once believed fear solved everything, restraint became the hardest victory of his life. The ballroom doors opened. Rachel stopped. It was the same room. Golden chandeliers. Marble floors. Champagne glasses catching warm light. For 1 second, she remembered Preston's hand around her wrist. The laughter. The humiliation. Then Gabriel squeezed her hand. "Want to leave?" Rachel looked at him. Months earlier, he would have decided for her. Tonight, he asked. No, they entered together. Conversations softened briefly as people noticed them. Rachel recognized several faces from that night. Some looked embarrassed. Others simply smiled. She needed neither reaction. She had stopped measuring herself through other people's eyes. Later, beneath the chandelier where everything had begun, Gabriel found her alone near the terrace. "You disappeared. I walked 20 feet. For me, that qualifies." Rachel laughed. Gabriel stood beside her. Chicago glittered beyond the glass. After a moment, Rachel said, "Do you remember what you told me that night?" "I said many questionable things." She turned toward him. "You're sleeping beside me tonight." Gabriel closed his eyes. "I was hoping that sentence had died. It deserves to haunt you forever." He laughed softly. Then the humor faded. "That night, I thought protecting you meant keeping you close enough that nobody could reach you." Rachel listened. "I understand now that loving someone isn't deciding where they stand." His eyes met hers. "It's making sure they remain free to choose." Rachel's expression softened. There it was. Not the feared mafia boss. Not the man who could silence ballrooms. Just Gabriel. Learning. She stepped closer. So asked properly this time. His breath caught. "May I kiss you?" Rachel smiled. Yes. The kiss was nothing like the first. There was no Marcus watching. No danger. No performance. No room to convince. Gabriel kissed her gently because she had chosen him, and Rachel kissed him back because power had finally learned to ask instead of command. When they separated, applause unexpectedly rose behind them. Rachel turned. Several guests were smiling. She covered her face, laughing. Gabriel looked almost offended. "I specifically requested discretion. You invited 80 people. A tactical error." Rachel slipped her hand into his. Months ago, an entire ballroom had watched a housekeeper being treated as though her dignity depended on someone powerful defending it. Tonight, that same room saw something different. A woman who had never needed permission to possess dignity. A powerful man who had discovered that protection without respect was merely another form of control. And a love that became real only when neither person had to kneel for the other. Rachel rested her head briefly against Gabriel's shoulder. Outside, the city continued glowing. Inside, he held her hand without tightening his grip. And this time, everyone understood the difference.